record, and then we can have it like the video recording, whatever. So
Yeah, and when you look in where it saves it, it saves it twice. One is an audio video, and then one is just audio.
do you know what format?
I do not. Hold on, let me check. I will check.
So you do know that most of the stuff I have at the beginning is from what we actually do in the beginning. I just cut and paste different fun stuff.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
Yeah. Like that one waiting on you to come on, Arthur.
Arthur. All right, let's see.
Hey, there's John.
Recording. Where's this? Hey, I'm stupid button.
Oh, that's going on right there.
Help me.
Hey, so Arthur,
Yes.
search for the team for that terrain race.
Oh, okay.
The team is SoCon Team Jax.
Hold on, I don't even know. I went to the active website that it showed me before, and it had my mutter race, but it didn't have the terrain race. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then I found out that it's freaking something else. It's
yeah, if you find it, the team is easy, SoCon Team Jax, and then the password is Team Jax, all one word, capital T.
Hold on, let me write that down. SoCon Team.
What's up, John and Danny?
Hey, not much about you.
Doing good. So I have the power to mute all, so if I don't like what you're saying, like if you're not scripturally sound, I'm just going to mute you.
That's messed up.
Dude, that's screwed up, man.
That's what I said.
It's jacked up. Hey, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, how about can everyone see me, Arthur?
Boy, you can see me?
What?
Arthur, I love the background. How did you do that?
If you go to video, there's a little arrow next to the side of it. You can add the virtual background.
Yeah.
And the virtual background will let you change it into anything you want. Like I can do this one, or I can do this one, or this one, or this one. But I figure since we're doing the Five Guys podcast, I might as well do this one.
I like it, but I don't see how I can do that.
And if I want to get really crazy, I can do this.
It is on part of the settings. I was messing with it. I forgot one, but yeah.
Yeah, it's right next to in the bottom bar. There's your audio and then the video. And next to the video, it's got a little arrow next to the side of it that points up. If you click it, it'll bring up a menu. It'll say choose.
Mine says choose camera.
Mine says choose a virtual background.
Yeah, mine doesn't do that.
Look for something that says more.
Something that says what?
More.
Yeah, I'm on settings, but I don't see it.
Huh, that's weird. Well, I'm on
a Mac, so maybe that's it.
Hey, don't be cussing Macs. Macs are awesome.
Macs are
I love Macs.
All right, so I'm looking for what recording. No, I don't want it. Stupid. Can you make it harder for me to navigate through your I'm stupid button? All right. Screen share recording. Okay. Recording layouts.
The original ratio.
Oh, I can rename people if I want to.
I can change it back. All right. So recording file formats. All right. Zoom uses the following file formats. MP4 for audio video file that's named zoom_0.mp4 by default. And then each of them after that will be in sequential order. So it'll be Zoom 1, Zoom 2, on and on. And then M4A audio only format.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
No, but I can use that. Okay.
M4A is usable because I did a podcast from my phone and recorded in M4A, and I uploaded it to Anchor, and it sounds beautiful.
Cool.
Oh, John must be cleaning.
Yes,
Yeah.
he said that earlier. Why did he change his background?
No, it's weird. I think we're looking at a window, maybe a door.
I see shelves. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to change. I already registered, stupid. Not
Okay.
Phoenix, Arizona. Oh, my
All
bad.
right. So now that we are all here, I guess we'll talk about marriage and kind of go on from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So who wants to lead us off in prayer this time?
Anyone? No one?
Don't
Yeah, I'll
everybody
do it.
speak at once.
You do it. All right.
I do it. Yeah. Dear Lord, thank you for this day, Father. Thank you for bringing us here in your glorious name, Father. Thank you for keeping us all safe in this weather we're having in Louisiana, Father. Thank you for the blessings of it, Father, that brings with it, Father, the growth and spiritual well-being behind it, Father. Those who are in trouble or are in need, Father, I pray that you work in their lives, Father. Lord, I pray that you'll bless this podcast, Father, that we'll speak your words of wisdom and be less of us and more of you, Father. Lord, that we can grow in your word and your blessings, Father. Lord, we thank you, we honor and praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 All right. So here we are, podcast number 4. Yay! We've made it.
So excited.
And we're not limited by time this time. So if it goes over a little bit, we're not worried about it.
That's right. We're slowly going to venture into video podcasting as well. Maybe.
I gotta say, for those listening to this podcast, you're not able to see what we see, but I am digging this layout of the Zoom call.
Okay. Sure. I like it. It's probably different for all of us.
They can't see it, but I like being able to see each one of you guys.
Yes, it is nice. We can tell when someone's about to talk. Hey, raise your hand.
We'll raise hands. I'm digging it.
All right, I can't use internet because it freezes my phone.
Okay.
Oh.
Do you have a good cell connection there?
I'm in the middle of Minneapolis. They're 5G.
Oh, 5G.
5G.
Yeah.
5G for
No,
the five
wait.
guys. What?
Oh.
Yeah. I'm not in any of those little small towns like Jacksonville and Baton Rouge. I'm in the big city now.
I like now 5G is better than LTE, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good.
It's slowly rolling out.
Before we talk about marriage, I just want to say congratulations to John for completing his first Tough Mudder today.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a sunburn to show.
Is the blank spot where the bandana went?
No, I didn't wear it, but they didn't give you the bandanas you got at the end, which makes me wonder if you get a different color. Because they were given the same bandana to everybody that ran through. So I wonder if it's just a regional thing.
You're supposed to. No, you take it back to the tent when if you've run 2 or 3, you take it back to the tent and they trade it out at the end.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
can I
so
just tell them I rode 10?
They actually have a way of tracking your name, I think.
Yep.
Because I know when I ran my second one, I took it up there and they just scanned something on my wrist and they gave me the right color.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
Okay, so
your name is Bear. Bear.
I got to give you this one story. So we ran across this lady. She's kind of standing off to the side waiting for her guy to come up and join her. And we're like, how's everything going? She She goes, it's good, but it's getting long. She goes, this is day 2. I said, really, day 2? I said, what'd you do? She goes, we did the toughest mudder, which was an overnight tough mudder run the day before. So they ran until 7 in the morning, and then they slept for a couple hours, and then they ran again. And then there's a guy on SoulCon Elite from Minnesota who ran the toughest mudder the night before. He ran 3 times through the course. 33 miles he did the night before.
Wow.
That's what I want to do.
That's insane.
I want to do
All right, guys, we will do this because we're all going to the world's toughest mudder
that.
in
Would be
Vegas.
awesome.
24 hours. We're doing it.
I have no desire.
Come on, John. You can't say no, man.
Just drink
I-
the
I can.
Kool-Aid.
I have a goal.
And so this is a little foreshadowing, but for our future listeners, what's going to happen is when we're at the Tough Mudder the night before, we will do a podcast from the Tough Mudder because 4 of us will be there live. We'll get Eric to call in. So like the night before, a little bit after, and we'll have all of our friends there, and that would be awesome. So we'll have like a live audience.
So it'll be like 10 guys in the Bible.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great. It'll be chaos, but it'll be fun.
Well, there's still time for Eric to join us. I'm pretty sure we could peer pressure that into happening.
I don't think so.
Not going to happen this year, boys.
Yeah, you got something going on that weekend, don't you?
I'm pretty sure I do. You know,
If not, he'll find something.
Yeah.
Boo.
hey, I don't know about you guys, but I'm married, and my wife kind of likes me to be around and not do crazy, stupid stuff.
I think we're all married. I think that's why we're talking about marriage today.
Actually, next year we should go to Japan. Steve thinks he's out of it, but they're opening Tough Mudder in Japan next year.
Man, that'll be expensive.
Hey, guys, I know Steve listens to this, but like we need to really figure out a way to link up with him somehow.
Okay, so we're gonna look for sponsorship off of our podcast.
Yes.
Whoever's out there, Kellogg's or maybe Gatorade, if you want to sponsor the 5 of us going to Japan. Eric's not going to run it because he doesn't do crazy things. Eric won't run it. He doesn't do crazy things. He's married, but we'll bring him with anyways.
If we can get an airline to sponsor us, that would be amazing.
Just don't do Southwest.
Boeing would be great.
Bowie.
So, or we can get Carl to get us on a cruiser, and it would take a week to get over there, but we'll get there.
Space safe flight. Maybe we can make that happen. Hey,
I can do Space A. That's right. I'm a veteran. Yeah.
Yeah, or we can do just Danny. You know people in the Army. See if someone's got a C-130, they can just cargo us over there.
Dude, they liked us to jump out of those. I don't know what the deal was with that, man.
Hey, I can take that off my box.
How epic would that be for the entrance?
No kidding, man. My first jump ever, man, I must have bounced 3 times off that plane before I had my chute open. They pushed me out that door and said, bum, 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 bum. It was great.
That would be an epic entrance, though, Tough Mudder Japan, first ever showing, and you got 5 guys in a Bible jumping out of the plane.
Hold an American flag. America!
Oh,
We're invading Japan.
We're here to claim this land.
Behind us. Woo! Yeah.
People are like, these stupid Americans.
They don't know.
That's why people hate us.
And guys, I'm putting together a little Love Me box for Steve. I'm going to ship him stuff from Louisiana, seasoning, spices, stuff like that. And I'll put it on the Marco group a little later. If anybody wants to throw some regional stuff in that he's never had before.
Yeah, definitely do that.
Yeah. Did he do one of the sand things, John? He didn't do that, did he?
No, it would have been like $75 for him to send sand over.
Maybe we can send him one if you got an extra one, perhaps.
Well, that was the Battle Brothers in Christ.
That was Battle Brothers, yeah.
Oh,
I haven't even announced that I want to do one for Elite yet.
Yeah. That's right.
And the guy that's doing them for me, he's in Japan, or not Japan. He's in Israel right now for 2 weeks.
Oh, sweet.
He does tours.
Man, I gotta edit this stuff out, so stop. I'm gonna mute. All right, Arthur has just been muted.
It's like he didn't even care.
Like, can you make my job easier? Like, if you know you gotta sneeze, mute yourself. All right, let's go.
I have a mute button. I hit it, and it just looked at me like, no, I don't think so.
I mean,
What? This is how I already know how our entrance is going to be. It's going to be one. It's going to be Arthur saying, "Where's the I'm stupid button?" and then he's going to burp.
Finally, we get rid of the flush.
Oh no! No, the flush is still there, brother.
Yeah, that follows the burp.
Yeah.
Like, man, I'm stupid. Belch, flush. Look what I just did.
Oh, and we just lost our female audience. Good job, Arthur.
All right.
I didn't do it. It wasn't me. It was the one-armed man.
It was the devil.
The devil did it.
All right. Yes, he did.
All right.
All right.
So I guess we should get
there.
started on our topic.
Oh, you're already recording? Oops.
Oh yes, I have been recording.
There's no time limit on this one.
No.
So
Oh,
other than the fact that I got to get up early, but that's all right.
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I gotta go to work tomorrow. Thought this whole hurricane thing would have kept that from happening, but nope.
All right. So marriage.
Mouth.
Where do we want to start with?
Otherwise known as prison. Just
For some.
No.
So with this, the biblical view of marriage, right? I mean, the best verses to go for is probably what? Ephesians 5.
Well, let's start from the beginning. Genesis 2, 22 through
Mm.
24.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. It reads, Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. That is why man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh.
Ooh, I like it. Go back and say it again. When a man's supposed to leave his mother and father.
All right. That's Genesis 2:24. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh.
Yep. So that's a very interesting verse, and I hear it used all the time when couples argue and fight over their in-laws. So now, before we get started, let's do a little quick roundtable. This is Danny. I've been married 18 years. It'll be 19 years in August. So I got a little experience under my belt. Next.
Well, I'm Carl, and this October will be 11 years of marriage for me. So some experience as well, too.
All right, this is John, and we just had our 12-year in June.
This is Eric. In December, I will be hitting 16 years with my lovely wife.
And this is Arthur, and I will be married in November 13th for 17 years.
All right. So thank you all for doing that.
Yes.
But really, who has had that argument early on in marriage when it could be over anything, but your wife, has anyone had that issue where their wife was hard to leave her parents to be with you?
No.
Oh, dude, that happens. That happens. I think both ways. To be honest with you,
Okay.
you know, I'll give you an example from my marriage is, and it really caused a problem because when there were major issues or something, you know, I'd always call my dad because, you know, my dad and I have a really good relationship, and I trust his, I trust what he has to say, because he has been married for so long. So I kind of trusted dad's input. And that would always just really make my wife mad. She's like, it's like, you don't talk to me about it. And I'm like, no, honey, I talk to you about it. But when we talk and we have the disagreements, it's just like, I don't want to just say, well, I'm the man, I'm the head of the house. I'm going to, you know, it's my way or the highway. You know, I go to talk it over with my dad. And if I'm being an idiot, you know, about it, he'll tell me. And, you know, that did not make things any better for sure.
Yeah, I know. Early on, I was the guy who was like real quick to get away from my parents. I love my mom, love my dad, but once I turned 16, I really just wanted to be independent, be on my own, support myself, get out of the house. It was just one of those. I don't know if it was like ingrained in me, like in my DNA, to just want to get out. But that's what I did. And like I said, it wasn't anything they did to push me away. I just really couldn't wait to get on my own and be independent. So when we got married, I got married at 21, and we moved away immediately. She didn't have so much of a hard time leaving her family, so it's not a problem I really experienced. But when we've counseled young married couples at church, that seems to be a big issue is either the husband getting away from his parents or the wife getting away from their parents. And I just thought it'd be neat if someone here had that relevant experience and could share a little bit about it.
No, other than counseling like you, counseling other people. So I got married later in life. Both of us did in our 30s. And we both grew up on the mission field. And so I was already, 7.5 years, almost 8 years into my Navy career. So I was used to not being home, you know, all this stuff. And she had a career. So that really wasn't a huge issue with us. But like you, Danny, I've had the issue when we've talked to, especially, man, in the Navy with all my junior sailors. They get married, high school sweetheart, and, you know, they move from somewhere out in the West Coast and now they're in Virginia or Florida and he's getting ready to deploy. They don't know anybody. And yeah, that gets extremely difficult.
Yeah, I guess I could be the closest to that. I mean, we live like 3 miles from my parents, and we've always lived kind of in the area. So, but I don't know that I've ever like run back for advice or anything like that. But it's just always, it's actually worked out for us that my parents are close because they've helped out with babysitting and different things like that. But I don't know that I necessarily hit them up for advice, although I've been given advice by my parents on more than one occasion. But
yeah, I'm same here, man. And it took many years before I realized just nod your head and smile whenever they give it, because there's I think my parents get upset to this day when I don't tell them things going on in my marriage. And it's like, well, I'm not in a bad place, so I don't need to share everything with you, and I'm not going to. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with sharing good things with your family, right?
Well, mine is kind of a little different. when I got engaged and then got married, a year later, I had my brain tumor and cancer. And so my family moved from, because my wife's family are all from Florida, and that's where my duty station was. So we were just, I was just going to retire there. My entire family moved from California to Florida, and we all were neighbors all the time, always. And so for a while before they found their house, we lived, me, my wife, my oldest son, who was like 4 at the time, and my mother, my father, my sister, and her husband all lived in the same mobile home that was 910 square feet. So we were all up in each other's business, and everybody wanted to give advice. So, my father was a very dominant personality. My mother was the heart doctor. She was the one who, would give you the advice straight from the Bible. So I got it all the time. And when we finally separated into different houses, they were still my next door neighbor. So it was a lot of advice, and me and my wife sat down next to each other, and we sat down and we had a conversation when we had the house to ourselves, and we said, look, they're going to give us advice. We don't have to take it. We don't have to listen to it. They're going to give their opinion, but I moved out of the house and joined the Navy when I was 18 years old. And just because I have, a tumor or cancer and I may be dead in 6 to 9 months, oh, well, I'm an adult. I'll make my own decisions, and that's nice to say to your wife, but when your father and your mother are giving you advice, you just kind of sit there and, yep. But my wife has a very dominant personality. So when my father would say something that was out of line, or my mother would say something that she didn't agree with, she would put her foot down, knowing that I would have her back no matter what.
Mm.
I just
And
want
I
to
think,
say,
oh yeah, go ahead.
well, no, I'm sorry, but did anyone else hear when Arthur was talking about the advice that he got? How when he talked about that he got it all the time, like his soul was just being just slowly just ripped out
Yes.
of him.
Yes. Yeah. There's a flashback PTSD right there. Yeah.
No, I love my mother. She's a saint, and she would give me good biblical advice. But sometimes, you can only hear, you need to be the man, you need to step up so many times before you're just like, shut up. I just want coffee. All right. I'm only here for coffee. Give me coffee. I'll take your advice. I'll nod my head and I'll go back to my house.
There you go.
Well, see, and that's why, Arthur, I'm glad you brought this up out of Genesis, because it's almost like it's one of those things where we were designed as men to eventually grow up and leave our fathers and mothers and join with our wives and have separate lives. But the Bible also says that we should always be looking at seeking counsel, whether it's it doesn't matter what it is. If there's something that we're in way over our heads on, then we need to seek counsel. And who did we seek counsel from every single time that we needed it? Up until we left the house, we always talked to our parents, right? I get it. That's great. But I also understand when the Bible says that, you're to leave your father and mother, and both the husband and wife are to leave the father and mother and join together and become one flesh. That is another family unit being born at that moment. And what I'm seeing, and what I've experienced, is there are times that, and I'm going to say this and probably get shot later, when I go back home to visit my parents because they listen to this podcast.
So do
so
mine. So.
So I will probably get shot, but there's sometimes when parents need to realize that they have taken on a new position and a new role when a wife comes into the family, or when a husband comes into the family. It's just like my father-in-law told me, I'm always going to be her daddy. And I looked at him and I said, that's great, but I am her husband. I will be the one that takes up the provision for my wife and any little bambinos that come along. And you're not going to be, you're not going to be responsible for that to God. I am. So my father-in-law and I had an understanding real quick. And when I say that, I'm saying that, I basically put my foot down how I was going to run my family and not be swayed by pressure just because, he's her daddy. And I understand that. And I want him to be proud of the family unit that we have. But sometimes parents have just got to back off, shut up, and let us do what we need to do. I mean, that's what the Bible tells us to do. And I think that more often than not, parents have the hardest time letting go. I was not the perfect angel when I was growing up. I was pretty much the mouthy one. And my mom and I would get into it all the time. And from time to time we still do, when it comes to the fact of parenting. I have 2 little girls, and if I do something that my mom doesn't like, or if my wife does something that my mom doesn't like, she's pretty quick to voice her opinion. That's what we see in society today, and that's where I think that for those of us who have had moms that are the heart doctors, as Arthur put it, sometimes moms need to take a dose of their own medicine. So there's been a time or two that I've used this verse out of Genesis to say, I left you guys, I joined with my wife, and we're going to do things our way. Whether you're happy with it or not, it's our decision, and we have to answer to God for it, not you. Thanks for bringing that portion of Genesis up, Arthur. That was an awesome segue there.
Well, it's important enough that it's repeated in the New Testament as well. I think it's hold on, let me look. Matthew 19 verses 4-6. When Jesus says the same thing, so they are no longer 2, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. So, I mean, when I talk about different doctrine about Old versus New Testament, I go, well, let's put it this way: the Bible is true and useful for correction and instruction, the Old and the New Testament. But if it's in the Old Testament and then it's back again in the New Testament, pay extra close attention to it. So
Yeah. Jesus didn't change it, so he didn't bring something new with it. I think it's important to realize too. So if you're looking at the Old Testament as we transition to the New Testament part of it, this is the commentary from my study Bible. There are 3 basic aspects to marriage. The man leaves his parents and in a public act promises himself to his wife. I think the public act is important too, right? So in a wedding ceremony, you have her guest, your guest, the officiating, the minister, and all that. And so, which you have your witnesses in a what do they call that when people elope? When people elope and they just go to get married in secret. I don't think I tend to lean toward maybe that being wrong. If you're getting married in secret, I don't think you're starting off a marriage right.
It should be a public act. It should be something you're proud of. It should be something you would want to share with your family, her family, and your close friends. And then it says, number 2, the man and woman are joined together by taking responsibility for each other's welfare and by loving the mate above all others. So the minute you become married, right, that spouse takes precedence over all others, under God, of course. And I think a lot of times when we've counseled, me and my wife, we tend to see the priority being if they are Christian, of course, every Christian, every Sunday school answer is always going to be God first, yep. Right? So that's just an understood, right? So, but then it's in. I know my spouse should be here, but I'm going to put my mom or dad right here, or at least on the same level, and clearly we're not to do that. And then number 3, the 2 are united into one in the intimacy and commitment of sexual union that is reserved for marriage. Strong marriages include all 3 of these aspects. And there's also a commentary by David Guzik from the Blue Letter Bible that is pretty interesting. He says when Genesis 2:24 talks about they shall become one flesh, the institution of monogamous marriage, home and family, is the basic medium for the propagation of the race and the training of the young is so common to human history that people seldom pause to reflect on how or why such a custom came into being. Many want to believe that the monogamous 2-parent family was invented in the 50s by American television icons Ozzie and Harriet. But Adam and Eve were the original family. This is God's ideal family. It's not polygamy. It's not concubinage. Don't even know what that means. There isn't the keeping of mistresses. It's not homosexual or cohabitation. It's not promiscuity. This isn't living together outside the marriage bond. This isn't serial marriage. This is God's ideal for the family. And even when we don't live up to it, it is still important to set it forth as God's ideal. And then he goes on to talk about the one flesh, and obviously it's a sexual union. However, one flesh doesn't necessarily stick to your spouse. If you go outside your marriage and have sex with a friend or coworker or prostitute or anything like that, at that moment, you've now created a one flesh bond, right, with God, right? So yep. You've ruined your one flesh bond to your spouse by creating this other one flesh bond with whoever. And that is definitely not the right answer. There's no way to justify or ever bring about a justification for adultery.
Well, what I like about marriage, and I just recently found this out as we were studying about marriage. The institution of marriage is the only institution that existed before sin. Before the fall, marriage was the only institution that was ever in place before the fall and corruption, which is, it's the perfect union, which is why today's society, or, the world attacks it so much and cheapens it. Instead of, being shocked by, 50% of all marriages, including Christian marriages, and in divorce and being shocked by that, they're like, oh, well, you're no different than us. Yeah, and we should all weep because of that. And now they're like, I'm going to marry my dog, or I'm going to marry,
Well, if you think about it, I mean, in the New Testament, marriage is compared to, we look at the relationship, the bridegroom of Christ, right?
Yep.
When, Ephesians, when it all talks about Ephesians 5, when it talks about marriage, it is related. So the symbology, or not symbology, the symbolism between religion, there we go, let me get words out. The symbolism between marriage and our relationship with Christ is the same. And so that's how important God views this. I love it. You're right. It was the first thing that was created before sin, and that is how important marriage is to God. Because it was the first thing that was basically consecrated by God, right? It's there, and then the relationship that we see in the New Testament on how we're supposed to worship and how we're supposed to view Christ and other things is mirrored to how marriage is, or marriage is actually mirrored to that relationship. And that's how important it is. And that's why it seems like the world, the first thing that always happens is they attack the institution of marriage. And that seems to be the one thing that seems to be always being attacked is the institution of marriage.
Yeah,
I just
it's
find,
cheapened.
yeah, it's cheapened. Yeah.
I wonder if it would be stronger if we followed Deuteronomy 24:5. This is my favorite verse about marriage. Do you know that one? It's if a man has recently married, he must not be sent to war or have any other duty laid on him. For 1 year, he is to be free to stay at home and bring happiness to the wife he has married. I want a 1 year honeymoon.
Wait. Hold up. I like that verse. You know, it's great not having any other responsibility other than, you know, working on the marriage and everything. But, you know, and this is just me. I'm playing the DA here, devil's advocate. But, you know, why is it that, you know, the man is not to have any more duties? It doesn't say anything about the woman, because, you know, the woman's going to have some duties too that she has to fulfill during that 1 year period. And during the time that this was going on, you know, the women did all the stuff around the house and this and that. It's not like they went out to war. But, you know, it's very amazing to me how, you know, it's just like, okay, the guy's not supposed to have any extra duties laid on him. He's not going to go to war, you know, for that first year. You know, but you know, we live in a day and an age where, you know, women are now C-level executives and lawyers and doctors and all that. And, you know, people are getting married all the time. And honestly, in the beginning, there's this honeymoon phase, if you will, that we all go through. I mean, you guys, we've all been married for, you know, a decent amount of time now. And, you know, that honeymoon phase ends, and that's when the real marriage begins.
I get that, but you know that second part of that scripture is stay at home and bring happiness to the wife he is married. You're talking about you know, the woman has to do duties. I hate to tell you this, but if I was going to bring happiness to my wife, I would do the dishes.
Yeah, as
Well,
they say.
I also think, you know, bringing happiness to your wife, it might be that you're doing it right away, you know.
You know, it's funny. My wife actually talks about this quite a bit because, you know, Arthur, you said I would do the dishes, but my wife, she really could care less if I do the dishes or not. You know, what she wants is knowing that I'll provide, I'll be a supporter, I'll be involved in the kids' lives, in my children's lives, you know, and, you know, because I used to be when we went through premarital counseling, our pastor to this day, and it's still great advice, but he said he called it the M&M principle. Is it ministry or manipulation, right? So when you do things such as the dishes or fold laundry or sweep or vacuum or mop, you know, are you doing it out of ministry for your wife? Are you doing it for manipulation for sexual purposes later that evening, right? Because I've always heard it, you know, sex starts in the kitchen, right? You do the dishes, you fold laundry, and you're pretty much guaranteed to get you some that night, right? So,
Yeah,
but are
that
you
can't be the
doing
only
it
reason
for?
why you're doing it. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then that's the thing, you know, are you doing it out of ministry or are you doing it out of manipulation, right? So it soon turned into, like, between me and my wife, it turned into, yes, I help out around the house, but am I focusing time on her? Right. So am I, we've all heard the 5 love languages. Am I speaking her love language? Right. Which unfortunately for me, it's not doing the dishes. I wish it was that easy. But it's not. Marriage, and it goes to the point of marriage takes work, right? It's not just okay, I'm married, let's enjoy the honeymoon and we're good to go for the rest of our lives. No, it takes a lot of work, especially the longer you're married.
Well, and you also have to look at it, look at it this way. You brought up the 5 love languages, that's great, but I've seen this in other relationships that, of friends, in marriages of friends, we'll my wife and I, there's been a couple that we said, hey, go through this, read the 5 love languages, figure out, how to speak that love language. And I swear to you, more often than not, the men will go through, they'll find the love language, but their implementation of that love language is just, to meet the end goal of sex. And women these days are becoming more fiercely independent, and you work and you work and you work when you're dating and you're courting this woman that you're intending to marry. And then it's like once you get the ring on, people are thinking that, hey, as guys especially, we're thinking, hey, we made it, now we can slack off on the work and get the sex. So that still can become a manipulation factor, even when the 5 love languages is really a very godly centered process, to figure out how to speak your spouse's love language. So even the good God-centered processes can and do become manipulated for the end goal of marital sex.
I've never read that book.
Oh, dude, you're missing out.
No, I'm not. I'm doing just great. I'm telling you. I love my wife, with a fierceness of 1,000 suns, and I will do anything for her, and she knows it. And we start out as best friends before we ever dated. It's so funny. She used to hear, and we both served on the same ship when we met. We're both on the Kennedy, and she sits here, and she was my best friend, and it took until somebody encouraged her, because she didn't realize that I was dense and that I needed to be hit with a stop sign to get my attention. So somebody told her, hey, Shemet is a little slow when it comes to understanding, people's emotions about him. He just doesn't care. He's in his own world. So she walked into a fan room that I was cleaning. She picked up a pipe and she says, look, we're going to go out on a date, even if I have to hit you over the head with a frying pan or this metal pipe. And I went, okay. So that's how our relationship started. and we were best friends, and she wasn't what I was looking for physically. She wasn't, we were friends, and that was it. And that's all I saw her as. But I fell in love with her character instead of her personality. The little things that she did when no one else was looking, things that she didn't think that would, that I would ever notice. And that's what won me over. And that's why I proposed to her, was because I had fallen in love with her character. But the friendship never ended. We stayed friends forever. We still enjoy the same things that we enjoyed. Everything. Are you beating up on your phone?
I am. I'm sorry.
That was. Oh, we just lost John.
John, come back.
That 5G turned to 4G. Oh, he's back.
5G again.
5G again.
Right, John?
But yeah, so I mean, we stayed friends. So I don't need to read the 5 love languages because we were built on something different.
I bet
Sorry.
you if you read it, you're probably already doing it. So like my wife and I, we read it for premarital, which was helpful. And
I can't listen.
it's difficult. So we're watching Danny just go all like caveman on his phone.
Captain Caveman.
I guess you're paying that $1.99 now.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the study. I was trying to text my wife to see if she could bring me the Song of Solomon study I wanted to talk about. But no, I'm sorry. I did not mean to interrupt everything. Please forgive me.
That was good, but it's just, we did it for premarital, and it's just very basic. It's just understanding how each one's wired. So if you already had that friendship, then you already knew how she was wired, what she wanted, and so that's really the 5 love. Is just you just make sure that cup is always full, and it's great. And I love how Danny's talking about the 5 love languages, or not. He's talking about Song of Solomon, because that is actually a book that is forgotten, because it is a book about the courtship and love and marriage, sex, all the stuff. Because I think I had this conversation actually with our youth pastor, because he preaches sometimes on Wednesday night or Sunday night, and he's going through the 10 Commandments, and so the adultery one was coming up, and he's like, this is going to be weird. I was like, it shouldn't be weird. Like, we should have healthy conversations. I was just like, what's wrong, I think, with our churches is that for some reason, when they're teenagers and they're old enough to know about it, the church said, we can't talk about sex. And what happens is they're going to learn about sex from somebody else then, and it's going to be an unhealthy view of sex. The Bible explains the sex is mandated by God. Sex within marriage, God glorifies, and it's supposed to be awesome. But I don't think that's talked about enough in church. And so I think a lot of times when people get married, whether they've been through church or not, if they don't understand that the sex and the intimacy and like all that stuff is all ordained by God and can be used as a way of worship in a sense, then you have these unhealthy marriage relationships, because they take verses such as wives submit to your husband as to the Lord completely wrong, and they forget about down below where it says, oh, look, husbands, you need to love your wife as Christ loved the church, right? They forget about that part, and they only think, because they have this unhealthy view of sex and intimacy in marriage, because it's not talked about.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting thing about about my wedding. We went through the premarital counseling, and of course, we've read the 5 love languages book. But my wife told the minister in no uncertain terms that the portion about submission that was in the vows was to be taken out and not used in the ceremony. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is supposed to be, it's traditional. I mean, it's not. She's like, I don't care. It's not going to be in the wedding vows. It's not going to be in our vows. And after we got done with that counseling session, we headed out, and I'm like, what is the big deal with that? It's because she was a PK. Well, she still is a PK, but and that's one of those verses that is taken out of context all the time about submission, and it's lorded over women. And I'll be honest, I threw that out there once or twice shortly after we got married, and it's not that. And understand this: it's not that my wife doesn't want to be submissive. to me as her husband. She wants more than anything, to follow my lead as spiritual head of this house. It was just the fact that it had been twisted so bad that, and she had seen it time and time again, and she's just like, it's not going to be in the wedding vows. And I looked at her and I said, "You got it, babe."
Mine was that way too. She said, I wrote my own vows, and she goes, "No, I'll just do what the minister says." And I said, "Okay." And the minister says, "Love, honor, and obey." And she goes, "Love, honor." And everybody laughed about it. And she go to this day, every time I sit here and I bring up, just being funny, I go, "You're supposed to, obey." And she goes, "That was not in our wedding vows."
I actually have a copy of our wedding vows. So, if things really start getting nasty, I pull out the wedding vows, say, "Hey, we need to read these again."
When she gets me upset, I want to say, but I don't. Don't be Proverbs 27:15. But so she'll look it up and she'll sit there and go, "Mm-hmm. Be Ephesians 5 first." And I'm like, "Oh, fine."
What's even but it's all right. It all has been twisted up, right? And the whole thing is that, like, so I'm not going to expect my wife to view me the head of the household if I'm not submitting to Christ, right? So if I'm not,
And that's the key point right there.
That's the key point, and that's what people forget. So it's like, when I'm submitting to Christ and I have God first and I'm following God's will, and my wife, if she's not following God's will, then she's going to have trouble with that. But when she is submitting and she is following God, then there's harmony and there's no issue at all. But when either one of us stops doing the other, then that's where the issues come, because God's not first. And that's the key. But people don't want to they don't want to dig deep into the Bible and figure. They just look at this and be like, "Oh, you need to submit to me." And not to call out any pastors, people who are, but they write books and saying, like, "Well, I should get sex the wife should give the man sex anytime that he deserves it or wants it." No, because if I'm loving God first, and then when my wife is having a bad day, then I'm going to love her and I'm going to understand, you know what? I can probably wait a little bit longer because that is the right thing to do. But
Yeah, it's that divine order.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, have you guys heard of the triangle theory, where you've got your vertical, or no, horizontal line, and then they go up at a 45-degree angle to the point? Yes. Basically how that is at the bottom there, you have a man on the left side, woman on the right side, and the closer they get to God, which is the focal point of that triangle, the closer they are together. So if either one of them are out of sync with God, then
they're never going to meet up.
They're it's not that they're not going to meet up. It's they're not on an equal level on the horizontal plane. So the relationship between themselves, if one is a little off with God, and the other spouse is not, then it's not going to be a perfect horizontal line across that joins the two together. So it's one of those things that I learned probably 25 years ago, and it's always stuck with me. The closer that a man and woman are to God, the closer they are together. So that's something that I find interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
And then there was Danny.
What's interesting?
Yeah, well, I had something to chime in on, and I'm trying to remember what it was.
I saw the hand go.
Oh, there's John. He comes in with.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay, so I'm gonna go off on this one a little bit. A little different tangent because when you look at, you know, the lack of a spiritual leader in the house, and, you know, the man shall be the provider and all that. I mean, in today's marriage, in today's society, those are weapons. The man should be the provider, where it's like, well, you know, hey, I'm the breadwinner here, honey, so you're not the provider anymore. You know, it becomes weaponized against the man, where he's like, and part of the weaponization is the man gets the guilt and the shame that he's not providing the way he feels that he should for his family. And usually that provision is materialistic instead of spiritual. And then they get hung up on that materialistic thing. Well, I didn't provide a big enough house, and I didn't do this, and then blame, shame, guilt, and all the other BS comes into play. And pretty soon they're escaping so that they don't have to deal with the fact that they've created this story that they're not the provider. Where actually the true provision should be: are you providing a spiritual center point for your family? Are you providing that hub for your family to lead off of? And it's been twisted into a material world, and then that in turn is just twisted into everything else that goes horribly wrong with marriages. That's all I got.
Yeah, so I can go kind of testify to that, and this will be a little bit of my testimony and story, is when we first got married, it was, we got married August 12, 2000. We courted and all that for 18 months prior to the marriage. And so when I accepted Christ, Ashley was there. She led me to the down to the pulpit where the pastor was, and I accepted Christ with her there. Now, we were just friends. We weren't dating. We weren't doing any of that stuff. She just wore me down. Every Friday and Saturday for a year, she would ask me to go to church, and for a whole year, I'd tell her no. And then they told me they had jambalaya, and that's why I went. So when I accepted Christ, you know, Christ or God and Jesus, they built those bonds with me and Ashley, and we dated, we courted, we married, and everything was good in the sense of marriage was good. We were on our own. We were independent. We were still in college, and then 9/11 happened, and my patriotic streak kicked in. So I was still in college. I went to the recruiter. I was way too fat to have been selected, but in a time of war, they want bodies, right? So the recruiter told me, look, work out, lose some weight, come back to me once you're graduated, because obviously you can go officer route and all this stuff. So I was like, okay, I can do that. And then, you know, fast forward to 2004, you know, the wars, the Iraq war was going on. The Afghanistan war hadn't quite kicked off yet. And Nick Berg was the first American contractor beheaded on a public forum. I believe they put it all over the internet. And a buddy of mine showed it to me, and I got pissed off and joined the military, right? I went to the recruiter, said, I can't wait. I got to go. I just really want to fulfill my duty. And so from 2000 to 2004, I was that provider, right? Like I was that center of the household, and I was very much on fire for Christ because I was still new to it. But when I joined the military, and I went through infantry, I went through aviation. After that, I went through special operations. I went through all this training and deployments that took me away from my wife. And so she had to learn to become the leader of the house while I was gone. She had to learn to pay the bills and provide. And, you know, even though I was providing in a financial sense with the military, she was doing everything else. So when I came home, and it was really easy for me to slip into that role of, oh, she's got this, you know, and then I became very arrogant. I became very self-centered. just in the military lifestyle, right? Just because of the skill set I received, the training I received, I was very confident in my abilities, and I stopped relying on God at that point, right? So it became what I can do, what I can do. I can do this. I can do this. So when I was done with the military, got injured, got out. Now, I'm back home. I'm serving in probation and parole capacity. I worked with U.S. Marshals, and I've done. Now I work at a chemical plant, right? So in a chemical lab, and it's taken that point to realize I've got to get my house back in order. So it's been the last, I don't know, probably 12 months, 14 months. I've really embraced that role, and then we all found, I found the ministry that shall not be named on the podcast that really put the focus back on God, right? It's not my abilities. It's not what I can do. It's what God allows me to do. and really put the ministry back in my marriage. And that's where I've become the provider. And in the time that I've done this, my marriage has been more beneficial. Now, we've had our struggles recently that you guys know about, but I've now finally got past that. But yeah, I want to testify to what John was saying. With the appropriate role of not just a financial provider. Go, Eric.
Well, what I was going to do is I was going to say that one of the things when I was in my early 20s, 21, 22 years old, I had this disease, if you will, and it was more of a complex than anything because, of course, not a lot. Some people know, some people don't. My current wife is actually my second wife. When I was in my early 20s, I had what I like to call the savior complex, and so I wound up dating this girl and getting engaged and getting married. It all started with the savior complex issue. And that's kind of something that I want to make sure that, those men that listen to this podcast, I want to make sure that you guys really understand this. Just because you see a damsel in distress does not mean that that is the woman God has called you to make your wife. That is the wrong way to go about it. I screwed the pooch on that one. And my first marriage was just right at a little over 2 years in length. And this woman wound up, cheating on me. And then before I could get down to the courthouse and file for divorce, she did it for me. So guys, it's very important that yes, we do have these tendencies to look at the cowboys and the Indians. That's where they were talking about damsels in distress, and it was the knight in shining armor that came and rescued the woman, and then it just happened and it worked out happily ever after. Bull crap. It doesn't always work that way. Number one. Number two, just because you can save a woman from making stupid mistakes does not mean that that's the one that God has called for you to marry. So guys, be very careful about that.
And that's been 5 guys. All right.
No, it's just a lot to.
Yeah, you got
Just
to
a lot of.
process it.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff right there. I mean, it's all good. I don't know really where to go from there with that.
Hey,
No,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I brought it up. But it's honestly, I see that today more often than not, and I just felt that just drop in my spirit, and that's why I went with it. I didn't want to blow y'all's mind or nothing, but it is what it is, and we're 5 guys, and we're talking about our experiences. We're talking about the Word of God and how our experiences have made us the men of God that we are. But yeah, I didn't really want to go that deep and blow y'all's minds. I apologize for that.
Oh,
No. Yeah, it's all good. No, so guys, we have a tendency to, we're guys. We want a challenge, right? We're hunters, providers. We want to chase a prey. And too often, more often than not, we view women that way, in the sense of, okay, I'm hunting, and I'm going to turn the charm on. I'm going to turn the date nights on. I'm going to, do everything, in a biblical sense, right? I'm going to be that uber Christian male that she's looking for. And then, once you bag that prey, so to speak, in marriage, well, now I can take that hat off and be who I really am, right? And I mean, I fell into that trap. I mean, did anyone else?
Definitely.
No, I more than a hunter, I was a fixer. I was engaged 5 times before I met my wife, and each of them were, I can save you, I can fix you, I can.
Oh, you're that guy.
My wife was not a project. She basically said, "This is how it's going to be, and you're going to accept it." And I went, "Sure, why not?"
Why not?
My wife was she was the challenge, because I was told that we were working in the same restaurant at the time, and one of the people in the restaurant, said, "Oh," I said, I started asking about her. He's like, "Oh, she's got a boyfriend right now, and she would never be interested in you anyways. You're a restaurant manager. Like, you can make any money." And I was like, "Oh, really? Well, let's just see about that." So she was on the rocks with the boyfriend at the time. And turned out that they broke up, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So then I decided I'd ask her out. We went rollerblading, and she told me as we were going down a hill that she didn't know how to stop. So that turned into a big crash and wreck. Yeah, it's funny. We always say, our relationship started out with a crash and me pouring water on her butt to clean her wounds. Because she had a big wipeout. Pretty funny. Had a big scar going up on her butt, and I had a bottle of water. We get back to the car, and it's like, "Oh, here you go. I'll help you clean it out." It's pretty funny. But I mean, initially it started out when someone, you don't have the future earning. It was called peeps in my crowd, future earning potential. And I was like, "Really? So it's all about the money, huh?" I said, "I don't think so." So I went after her. And at times she's like, that was probably a bad thing, but at times she likes me. So.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times before I got married I heard, I'm never good enough, or I'll never be able to make enough money, and all this stuff. And man, those guys were right. But it ended up being, I mean, I must have heard a dozen different times, man. Especially, so it was all. I started off initially in pharmacy school, and that's a profession where you make decent money. And 2 years into it, I realized I did not want to be a pharmacist. It was just not pleasant. I worked as a pharmacy tech, and I saw 2 pharmacists go to jail. I just did not want to do it. And I got changed my degree to computer information systems, and there's no money there at all unless you go high up and get all these certificates and all this stuff that I had no desire to get. So escaping to the military was kind of my, like, all right, I can do that. It's easy, in the sense of just following orders, and, but man, like, once I did that, it was funny how many people, including my side of the family, all of a sudden was, oh, well, she just wants money. Like, you're not going to be good enough. And I was like, well, that sucks. Why are you telling me this? Like, where was this, 3 years ago, And, of course, my wife is not like that at all. Like, I don't, to this day, I'm not sure why she chose me. Because, man, then I was a scrawny 140 pounds. Like, I looked like Carl. I mean, it was just, oh. Hey. He's awake. I thought you were just staring off.
I'm 164.
What a dig, guy! What a dig!
Oh, my 2-pack. I had a 2-pack. No chest. No, it was.
Messed up.
Yeah, no. So it turned into. Yeah, I really don't know why she fell in love with me, other than it was a God-led thing, because I was never attracted to her. Like, she was never the type of girl I had dated before, especially being a good Christian girl. Like, I was a skateboard punk, man. I had hair down to my middle of my back. I wore Airwalk shoes. It was just, that's what I did. Cowboys bullied me. The other uber cool
I can't even
kids,
imagine that.
like, oh, what, dude?
But Danny with hair? Yeah, no.
I had a cowboy in high school one time literally pick me up by my neck, had me up against a wall, and it took I don't even remember who it was, like a band nerd or something, came over and saved me. I was like, this is the most embarrassing day of my life. A cowboy had me on a wall, a band nerd saved me. So
we band nerds save people.
I became a band nerd because of that dude. So it changed my life, I tell you. Yeah. So, but yeah, so and it's very important to find the right woman, that God has for you, and not just. But to get to marriage, you got to date the right way, right? So there's actually, a guideline for this. It's in Song of Solomon, and it's a poetic language, so you really got to decipher it, which, thank God, there's been people out there who have been inspired and have done this for us already. Song of Solomon's by Tommy Nelson. If you've not done it or followed the course, I highly recommend you do it. It's something I look at least once a year. Me and my wife look at it, and yeah, we're married 18 years. And so the first part, the art of intimacy, the art of dating, the art of getting to know one another, we're kind of past that point, but really and truly we're not, because it helps you keep the marriage fresh, right? And like I said, it's this extremely poetic language book. So it's kind of hard to read on your own and decipher it. But man, when you go through the study, it really opens your eyes to it. But you got to get to marriage first. And
have you guys ever taken all the imagery from Song of Solomon's and drawn it out? So you can actually find people that try to draw it out, and it's actually pretty hilarious. To make these Valentine's Day things that you can send to your wife. So it's like your brow is like the steed of a whatever. And so it's like this weird like drawing thing. I sent those all during Valentine's Day to my wife. And she loved it because she knew that, because this is funny, because this imagery, right? It's all poetic language, but when they draw it out, she's like, oh, this is so weird. But she loved it because it's, I guess, meeting that next level of intimacy, right? Because she knew that I was kind of reading and kind of doing something different to kind of spark, just to keep the spark going, I guess. So.
Well, and Danny, it's a good thing that you're going back over that maybe once a year, because the longer you're married, the more changes come about, and it helps you keep in touch with the change. Whether the changes in you, whether the changes in your wife, it just kind of keeps you guys connected through the changes, the longer you're married. So, man, I applaud you for that. That's definitely an awesome thing, and I'll have to hit you up later for some information on it.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
Maybe there's a way, Carl, is there? I don't know if there's a way to make a link or a note to like link stuff to the podcast. I don't know. Maybe you can, like, now that we're on iTunes, I know I've seen it like in the description portion. There's a way to link things, I think.
Yeah, if I have on the description of it, when I upload it, in the description, if I have the link, I can probably type it in.
Okay. I'll look it up. I know it's on Amazon, Eric, or anyone else listening.
Hey, so on an unrelated note, well, it's kind of related, just not quite a marriage. Since we're going to be using this Zoom thing, I've sent you guys all invites to the 5 Guys in the Bible Zoom group. So it's be for us, so it will basically always have this group. I can make you guys admins, which means that, let's just say I'm unable to be on a call or anyone, then you guys can still start it and then do a recording if needed. But we now will have our own group.
Sweet.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So let me know if you don't have the email. I should. I sent it all out. So just let me know if I just need to resend it. But that should make it easier. So now when we log in, we always have this group, and it's just there, just something cool, like our own little special meeting room. So
awesome.
So let me ask you, I'm assuming you're editing this part out.
Yeah.
This thing, if we make a YouTube channel,
Yep.
like 5 Guys in the Bible,
I have it to where it saves the 5 screen, not the talker.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So the gallery view is called. So I have it set up for that. I don't know if this one is, because I started it in the middle of it, whatever, to save it. But it'll probably just be my view, I believe, since I'm the one doing it, which is all right, which currently has me in the top left, then Arthur, Danny under me, then John, and then Eric.
Just remember, guys, don't pick your nose or pick your teeth while we're doing this.
Oh no,
I don't know what you're talking about, man.
This is all uncensored. I can't edit video. So I can't.
Oh man.
Hey, so now, point, is that going to be the first episode?
Say that again.
Since this is the editing point, are we going to like let that first part be the first episode? We could stop with like the Song of Solomon.
Yeah, because I have
pick up on the second one.
If you take off, so we did over an hour, I could probably have a good 30 to 40 minutes easy.
Man, has it been an hour already?
It's
hour,
24
minutes, and 33 seconds.
I might have.
You think you have 2 episodes out of that?
Probably.
Yeah, I'll probably do it. If I make them like right at 30, like, I could probably get 2.
You just got to find that good ending point. We really got to work on our outros, I think.
So the outros I've been doing on my own when I do it. So let's just record an outro now, and then I can just edit that in for. So let's record an outro for both the first part and the second part, and an intro for the second part as well. We might as well just do it all on here.
Just do the Princess Bride intro. My wedge, my wedge.
No, the intro has to be Arthur's belch.
No. Well, I'm not talking about that intro. So that intro I get from all the stuff I edit out. Don't worry, I have enough for both of those. So I'm talking about after my father-in-law speaks,
Yeah.
and I introduce part 2. So if someone just wants to go ahead and just say the introduction to part 2.
I still like the idea of doing the random talking. Like if you take all that random talking we did at the beginning and just cut it in half.
Well, did you hear how I did Samson part 2? I had the stuff in the beginning. What? Oh, okay.
I hadn't listened to it yet.
I have the crazy stuff in the beginning, and then I have my father-in-law, and then it's me saying, "Hey, we're going to continue now to Samson part 2, basically, da da da," and then so easy way. But I would rather do that all here so that the audio is the same, because it was different when I was recording it.
But at least the audio is more consistent on Zoom than it is on the Anchor app.
No, this has been a whole lot better.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we can do it like wav, twoo wav.
Oh, you gotta find that. That'd be awesome.
I put a link to the video on the Marco Polo earlier this morning.
I like it.
Yeah, if I get the audio, I can do that.
Was that Adam Sandler and Kevin? Well, it's like a circle. A circle. Now,
all right, does someone want to do the outro for part 1?
John. I nominate John.
John. All right. Okay, so the outro for part 1 will be. Hold on a second.
Just give me enough time to edit before you start talking, so like I know, right? All right.
Yeah, I got you.
And everyone else will be muted.
Well, guys, that was a good start to the conversation. However, we're going to have to continue on another episode. So this is going to conclude episode 1 of marriage, and we'll head into episode 2 next week. Does that work?
Yes, that worked good. So now, Arthur, you can do the intro for part 2. You're not talking. You're not muted either, so I don't know what you're doing.
Stupid mute button. Am I? Oh, good. I'm unmuted.
All right. So count in your head like 5. What?
I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing now?
Oh, you're doing the intro to part 2. So
wait,
like.
What? Wav, twoo, wav. All right, hold on. Let me compose myself. Marriage. Marriage is the reason we are gathered here today in honor of Wav, True Wav. Actually, we're back for part 2 of our marriage discussion.
Yes, I like it. That's good. That's good.
I had to mute myself.
All right. So now, Danny, you can close us off from part 2.
All right, guys. It's been a great podcast. We've had a great time talking about marriage. Hope you were able to glean something off of this. Biblically, it's to honor God and honor those who are in existing marriages, those who are upcoming marriages. We love you all. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. All right. So I will get part 1 ready to get shifted up on Friday. And then I won't be able to work on part 2 until I'm back next week, but I'll get it done. So unless unless part one becomes super easy, then I'll get them both done. And the fact that this audio is so much better, that's less crazy editing. So I might be able to get both of them done. That'd be good.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Anything we do to make it easier on you, man.
let's talk about our next topic. What we're going to do next.
Let me stop recording real quick because we don't need to record all this stuff. So.